In this video, I'm going to talk about writing exponential functions from a table, from a graph, and then also from points, and then we'll talk about linear versus exponential. So with writing exponential functions, this is key right here. A times b to the x. A is your y-intercept. You can always find your y-intercept where x is 0 because it's crossing that y-axis. And then b is the constant ratio. B is what you're multiplying by. Okay, it's always what you're multiplying by. So we have our example right here. We were given a table, and you'll see in all the problems, I like to make tables. I think tables is the easiest way to see what your ratio is. So in this table, we can see our y-intercept is 4, so our initial value is 4. Wherever x is 0, whatever your y value is, that's what goes first in your equation. Sometimes it's going to be 1, which you don't necessarily have to write it, but you certainly can if your y-intercept is 1. But if it's anything other than 1, you have to write it. Okay, so when x is 0, whatever your y value is, that goes first. Then we have to figure out what we're multiplying by. So remember, exponents mean you're multiplying over and over and over and over again. So whatever has the exponent of x is what we're multiplying by. So we can see to get our y values, 4 times 3 gives you 12, 12 times 3 gives you 36, and so on. And so that is what gets the exponent. So 4 times 3 to the power of x. I would encourage you to always put your ratio in parentheses. It's just best practice, especially because you don't want it to look like 43 to the x. It's 4 times 3 to the x. And if your ratio is a fraction, it has to be in parentheses, which we'll see in this one. So here we had a graph, and I made just a little table over the graph so that it would be easier for me to find my ratio. Now you can see I just copied these points right here, 0, 128, 164, 232. And so our y-intercept, our initial value is 128. That is the y value when x is 0. For the ratio, this one's a little bit trickier. Some kids will just say, oh, we're dividing by 2. Well, yes, technically we are dividing by 2, but that's not what the equation wants. The equation wants what we're multiplying by. So we're multiplying by 1 over 2. So there is a trick, not really a trick, but just a method to find your ratio if you're really struggling. The second y value divided by the first y value, so this right here, that will always tell you your ratio. So for an example, I'm treating Desmos just like a normal calculator here, and I'm going to give a fraction. And so you can see the second y value, 64, divided by the first one, 128, gives me that ratio of 1 over 2. And you can do this same thing on your like a normal calculator. Most of your calculators, if it gives you a decimal, you hit the button above enter, and it'll give you a fraction. So even though we're dividing by 2, we're multiplying by 1 over 2. And so that is what we would put in for our ratio right here, making sure we put it in parentheses. So this pattern works for everything. Like all the exponential functions that I'm going to have you writing right now, they're all in this format. A is the y-intercept, b is what you're multiplying by. So here we had a set of points. Again, I made a table so it was easier to see my y values. The initial value is 3, that goes first. And then to get from one y value to the next, we're multiplying by 4. Now it's also important, as you'll notice, that these x's go in order. So like 0, 1, 2, 3. Those have to be going in order for you to find your ratio. You can't go 0 and then 2. You have to go one at a time on those x's. So here, same thing. When x is 0, y is 2,187. So that is our initial value. That is the first thing in our equation. In our parentheses, we put what we're multiplying by. So in your calculators, if you do 729 divided by 2,187, you'll get 0.333333333. When you turn it into a fraction, that is 1 over 3. So that is our ratio. The last thing I'm going to talk about really quickly is the difference between linear and exponential. Linear means you are adding the same number or subtracting the same number over and over and over again to those y values. So this right here is a linear table. Exponential is when you are multiplying something by the same number over and over and over again. Now remember, you can multiply by a fraction, which means you're technically dividing by 3, that's still exponential, okay? So if you are multiplying by the same thing over and over and over and over again, it is exponential. This would be exponential.